Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hi there, it's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 236 of the Cognitive Podcast. Your comments are very welcome. You can comment on the blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, or you can comment in our group on Ravelry, which leads me to thank all the people who did comment this week. First off, Eliza S., thank you, and thank We Mango as well. I was delighted that you pointed out that you are one of my new Finch buddies, and I'm very grateful to you. I was wondering about that one. I was looking at the name with initials and thinking that's probably a listener. And also, you and Mango have been very participatory with me on Finch. So welcome to my tree is all I can say. Meanwhile, Chris clarifies her recommendation of the Pink Carnation series by Lauren Willig by telling us that there's a modern component to most books in the series. Now that's something I've never done in a book. I know this goes on now in fiction a lot, but I haven't read one of those yet, so that's going to be very interesting. She also points out, though, that her first dip into the series was The Mischief of the Mistletoe, and she said there's no modern component there. I want to point out, too, by the way, links to all these books are in the show notes, so enjoy. Ah, yes, DC Elaine Knits. Well, she posted in the show notes her picture of me as a bear, and so I simply stole it and posted it right up top of this episode because I'm a bear. Oh my gosh, I'm a bear, and I'm the cutest bear, and some little kid will love me bear. As a bear, you know what I mean. Look at that bear. Oh, it's got little blue pajamas. That's exactly what I would wear. Oh my gosh, Oh, I'm a bear. I can't believe it. I'm a fungus. I'm a bear. Oh, I'll get over it. It's been quite a week for things to get over in the best way of all, let me tell you. Meanwhile, I want to thank everybody in my communities in Finch, on Reddit, on the ground in the Santa Clarita Valley, and especially in this group. I don't know how I get through the week without you all kids, let me tell you. By the way, if you're wondering about my Finches, I have two of them. It's a long story how I manage that. Really, it's one account on two different machines. I use the same email for the accounts, but I just have different burbs. Just named them different things. So there they are. When I took that photo of them, they were posing for me in London, which I think is pretty cool. One of them is in London. One of them is in Rome right now. I do believe that's the green one. And I believe that, I get them confused. I'm sorry. I think the green one is Forthright, who's generally nesting on my iPhone. Whereas the orange-faced one, Courage, is nesting on my tablet, my iPad, my mini. Okay, but there they are, Forthright and Courage. Yes, there we go. I do identify them. And they're hanging out in London because, after all, one of them is in Rome. What is it to take a flight from Rome to London? Hour and a half, something like that. So, of course, they drop in on each other. Yeah, Gemma, you might be living this a little too much. Meanwhile, the Cognitive Fiber Retreat 11 is scheduled for October 11th, 2025. I am considering that same hotel because why not? Anybody who has attended at this hotel in Valencia, if you have comments, let me know. It's a pretty nice location. And Valencia has everything. I mean, any kind of food you want. I moved it out to Tehachapi for those of you who, like me, have fond Tehachapi memories because I was trying to make it really convenient for people to get to this time around. And because I couldn't get the deal in Tehachapi, and I wasn't sure people would want to go back with a different hotel and all that. So that's everything you need to know about that. Meanwhile, what's on my hooks and needles, you may be wondering. Well, hooray! I finished the Blue Iris Blueberry Waffle Socks, and there's a picture of my legs crossed up on my desk, enjoying them. And that is the recording of the last episode you see on the screen behind it. Every time I take a picture of my desk, I have to make sure I'm not putting any confidential information in the picture. So this one has been vetted. There we go. If you're really clever and you look to the right, you will see one of my Woobles, the sloth, hanging off my little lamp there. And you will see a lot of junk on my desk. Meanwhile, this means that the stash toss is now at 54 skeins in and 25 skeins out. No new yarn this week. Hooray. But where are we on everything else? Well, I haven't done anything on the Virgo sweater, the 10 square bag, the Lakeside cardigan, the September sweater. But I did start a new tiny project. This is another emotional support chicken, but I'm making it in leftover sock yarn. It's really fun to do. It goes a lot faster the second time because you sort of know the logic of what you're doing and how things are supposed to work. I've miscounted a few times on it, which I find peculiar, and I'm not sure how I did it, but I'm not particularly worrying about it. I just knit two tog here and there when something goes a little wrong and keep it balanced. What's nice to remember is that piece I'm knitting there, that one big piece. After you do the two tail sections and join them, you knit across the top. As you can see, the tail sections are the bright orange. And then you're just knitting up, and you're going to finish this big giant piece with the beak. When you put the beak on it, of course, you fold this in half along that line down the middle of the tail, and the beak is in the round, and it starts joining the pieces together. The reason that's so nice is even if you get a stitch count wrong on this piece, it doesn't matter a whole lot because it all is just going to be one big piece tossed together. Where you would see a problem with that would be when you attach the tummy piece, which is sort of the last thing you do as you're stuffing it. And even that isn't a big issue. They would be easy enough to stretch it a little or cram it together a little if you need to. So the nice thing is you can miscount on this, and there are not a lot of nasty consequences. As you can probably tell, I'm using blinding bright yarn on this. I'm looking at the dark blue there, which is, by the way, from the Blue Iris socks I just finished. That's color number 2, so there will be 2 bands of that around her neck. And I'm heading into a bright pink, also courtesy of Chris I, like the tail orange, to do the head and face with those stripes of blue around it. So yeah, I'm really having a blast with this. This does not take as much yarn as you might think, but it is a really, really fun way to use up sock yarn. I might also add, there is a crocheted version of this, which would use up even more sock yarn. And there are also mini chick versions of this, both in knitting and crochet. So you can have a sort of one-day wonder with this baby and really just buzz out a few mini chicks, just saying. I haven't gotten to them yet because I'm still just enjoying that first pattern. It turns out I don't enjoy knitting the tail that much, but that's pretty fast. I do one day for each half, one evening for each half. And after that, I feel like I'm just buzzing through the rest of it and deeply enjoying it. And the shaping makes so much more sense and is so much easier this time. And yes, it was my train knitting this weekend. No work on just about anything else, so that takes us to Dizzy Blondes. Dizzy Blondes, yes, I am endlessly spinning strands of the camel hair silk. And it's a long way from finished because it's really, really fine. And it's driving my sinuses crazy. So I do about 1 long strand per day because even as I sit here talking, it's near me, the unspun stuff. And my nose and my eyes are itching. So yeah, it's that time of the year. Right, the last time I blended this camel hair silk, it was 1 strand of that against 2 strands of the Lisa Souza BFL that I had spun. And it came out a little thin. So this time I'm thinking of chain plying the camel hair silk first and then plying it all together, or else doing a double strand of the camel hair silk in with the BFL. I hope I got it right this time. All right, all of this is using the Electric Eel 6.1. Meanwhile, let's get on to a strategy. Well, first of all, happy Pride Month. I don't care who takes it off what calendar, we all know it's there, and we need it to be there. We need it because people figuring out their sexuality needs support. Okay? And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about, does it even matter what I personally believe about sexuality? Because, I started out in a very strict Catholic school, and as you can imagine, I've come a long way. And the interesting thing is when I look back now, I see there was a lot more tolerance for, in this case, I'm going to call them alternative sexuality because that's how I was raised to see them. There was a lot more tolerance for it. That in the 60s and 70s, we all knew this was going on. We all knew people who were clearly gay or even trans, to be honest. And we didn't know what to do. And of course, we were just coming out of a generation, the war generation, the Second World War people, where you just don't even talk about things that are that hard. That's something they all learned during World War II because things were so bad. My British listeners are shaking their heads because, things were bad in America, but things were really bad overseas. They had much bigger shortages than we had, and we had shortages. Okay. So, they all learned this code of silence. And so my generation really struggled with sexuality because we just didn't have a way to ask questions or talk about it. But we all knew that it wasn't about just being male or female. We saw that, as the ideal system, but that didn't mean it was real. And we all knew that unless we were very, very blind or being kept in a box or something. But I was thinking about all that, and I was thinking about how all through my life I've been told that I can't be what I actually am. And it really hit me when I was out running how many times I was told I'm not an athlete. I can't be a runner. I don't have a runner's body. I'm not fast. I can't be an athlete. And I thought, isn't it weird? I've got a varsity letter for a rowing team. Isn't it weird? I started running when I was 10. I'm still running when I'm 64, and I've won races in my age group. This makes me all say, what actually is an athlete? I mean, I've marathoned, not just once, 3 in 3 months, in fact, when I did it. Damaged myself, so decided not to do that distance again. But if I'm not an athlete, who exactly is? Do you have to get paid $1 million on a baseball team or something? And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, well, after all, I was also told a lot of things I couldn't be. I was told I couldn't be in the Army. Yeah, West Point offered me a place. I never even asked. I was told I couldn't be in the Navy. Yep, guess what? Annapolis admitted me without me applying. I just got an acceptance letter because they wanted women. Shall I just go down the list? I couldn't be in the Ivy League. Yeah, Franklin Scholar at the University of Pennsylvania. I wouldn't win any of the scholarships I've won. Yeah, no, sorry, won them all. I wouldn't get into Stanford. Yeah, no, sorry, did that too. Wouldn't get a job as an English professor. Whoops, got it the first time around. At the University of North Carolina, turned it down and then got it the second time around. I mean, really, all the things I was told I couldn't. Oh, yeah, I was also told I could not run a business. I say as the former CEO of the My Last Name Companies Incorporated. I mean, it's just amazing what I've been told I couldn't do and what I've done. Oh, that's right. As a child of divorce, I was told also I couldn't have a successful marriage, and I was told I couldn't bear children. Isn't this astonishing? Yep. It's just a pretty big list of what I've been told I can't be or do. And yet I've been and done them all. And I thought about that, and I thought about human sexuality, and I thought, what must it be like to feel like you're standing outside the situation that is defined as normal, and people say you can't exist, you don't exist, you're morally wrong. By the way, I've been told that too. I've been told I shouldn't be a runner because it offends God's ideas of how women should behave. Oh, I could just go on and on. And I thought, it's interesting because I have never had anything on the scale of being a sexuality that was defined as outside the norm. And yet I'm astonished by how much I had to develop my personality to be what I really am, despite the, I'm sure, hundreds of naysayers at this point in my life. And I think that's how I understand LGBTQ plus. Okay, that I am straight. I just am. I have been pretty clear about that, most of my life. Although I have to admit, in my 20s, there was a point where I wondered. And, I've had some interesting experiences working in the prison, talking to men with life sentences about their sexuality. They brought it up, not me, believe me. I don't know. It's been a long, strange trip for me to understand sex and gender. And I don't think I'm the most liberated about it. I have problems with certain issues. But that, again, that's just being a human. We're allowed to do that. But that doesn't entitle me to tell somebody they are not what they know they are. And here's another one. They're allowed to change. Because at the end of the day, it's really not my business, is it? Just like it was nobody's business in 1970 when I wanted to run, and yet I was told I couldn't. By the way, it became a fad in about 1974, as I remember. I remember on TV Guide, they put the Bionic Man and the Bionic Woman, and they were in jogging suits running, and it was like, here they are, the bionic couple, and jogging is the new fad. And I was doing it 4 years ahead of that, but I was doing it in secret because we weren't supposed to do it. When I tried out for the track team when I was 10, I was refused because my parents didn't do enough time on the PTA. But I was told I could never be a runner because that's how they handled it at my school. And of course, being me, I just became one in secret. And I kept it from my family because I was told that wasn't a very feminine thing to do and so on. Okay. And if it's that hard when you just want to run as a woman, I can't imagine what anybody going through an understanding of their sexuality is going through. So I want to point out, I am what I say I am. And I have the right to understand myself. I have the right to change my mind. I have the right to explore my own identity. Back in the 70s, we called it finding yourself. And the generation before us used to laugh at us for saying we had to do it. Well, seems to be true. And I don't care if they believe they're dead, but I don't care if they believe they didn't have to do it. Because I would say they pretty much did. They just didn't talk about it as a category of behavior the way my generation does. But the idea is, I am what I say I am. I have the right to be what I want to be as long as it's not criminal and I'm not hurting anyone. And by hurting, I don't mean offending somebody's religion, because that's a private issue. If you don't like what I do because of your religion, don't do what I do, okay? Just go somewhere else quietly, but I'm not breaking the law. That's what I'm really talking about. It's nobody's business but my own, and I have the right to express myself that way as well. It's not hurting anybody else. So yes, I am a woman. I am a scholar. I am 2 PhDs rich. I am a runner. I am, everybody ready for it? Probably a genius. Yeah, I know. That's a whole story about why I just said probably, but a lot of things would suggest it. I am all of these things. And here I am at 64 running 3 miles to 4.5 miles a day. I am an athlete. I am all of these things because I say I am these things, because I explore myself through these filters, and I have a right to that identity. Now, if you happen to be gay or trans or anywhere on that LGBTQ spectrum, please feel free to substitute yourself. And this is why I don't have to understand what you're doing, how you think, or how you feel, to respect that you have that right to self-identification and exploration, as long as you're not hurting anybody or breaking the law. In the meantime, you can see my Finch app ID if you happen to join on Finch. Also, for those of you who did join me on Finch, I want to point out, they kept waving a little micro pet llama or a micro pet calico cat. And I thought, oh, they're so cute, but I'll never get them unless I can invite other people and get them to somehow prove that I invited them. Now I have them both as pets. Don't let that bother you. Going on to green fingers. Nothing much there. I am just frantically planting now because I have more plants than I have garden space prepped. And I still need to go to the garden store and buy a little bit of good soil and mulch and all that good stuff and put it around these guys. But everybody's hanging on. I've lost a few plants that I didn't plant in time. But on the whole, we're doing really well. In fact, the Texas sage and the Russian sage are flowering in their containers and on the ground. The creeping thyme is creeping. I can't tell what it's doing. I think it's trying to do okay. A few of those that I planted did die, but I think on the whole what I've got in there is staying alive. Again, I really could do a feed on everybody and we all would be the better for it. Meanwhile, I'll shoot kind of a lot of news because I'm back to running now daily. And so on Saturday, I did take a trip down to Encino to Roadrunner Sports to pick up new running shoes and insoles custom made, which frankly, the custom made insoles cost more than the shoes, if you can believe it. But I moved to a lighter shoe. I'm used to running in the heaviest shoe they make. This is kind of complicated. And, you know, into each life, so some rain must fall. Back in the day, shoes were sold by the weight of the runner. And to me, that makes intuitive sense. So I was what's called a Clydesdale, a heavy runner. So I wore very heavy shoes. Now, it is not cool to mock or condescend or in some way disrespect people's body shape, okay? And this, unfortunately, has translated in the running world to some confusion over how to market the shoes. So walking in and saying, I've lost this much weight and I need a lighter shoe, kind of confuses the very young people who are clearly distance runners working in these stores. I mean, I've found this at Roadrunner. I've found it at Fleet Feet Sports, that I am talking in a language of another age. The issue here, and this kind of goes back to the strategy, is I've never been ashamed of being a heavy runner. I was heavier than the average. In fact, I was rather proud of it because it meant that I was a positive force in my own health. And one of the things you run into, pardon the pun, when you're running, is we had a policy in races, you cheer on people. So you finish a race, and if you're near the course and you see people still finishing it, you cheer them on. And I was sort of horrified when a heavier runner, I didn't do this, but I saw this. Someone said, yeah, go, you're almost there. And she said, you're only doing that because you think I'm fat. And that got posted on the internet and got a lot of support. Like, yeah, how dare they do that? Well, the answer is that's called running etiquette. That was probably happening simply because she wasn't done the race. But as someone who has run at 225 pounds, which is well over a body mass index of 30, I think it's like a 33. Okay, right now I'm running at a 25, which is the top end of a healthy weight. But I've run as a 33 BMI. I was always comforted by people cheering me on. I thought they were respecting my battle. And I think it's just a little bit painful now because you mean well when you cheer someone on, but you don't know how they're going to interpret it. And I was raised to respect it. I was raised, if you see someone, particularly if you see someone struggling, no matter why they're struggling, you cheer them on. You try to encourage them and keep them going. So it's gotten a little tough out there in the running world because we're trying to be appropriate about body size and weight choices that people have made. But at the same time, we're trying to be positive for other runners. And it comes down to some confusion about buying shoes because it's really hard to get what you want. So, I managed to fight my way through that. Now, I've been running in Hoka 1-1s in their Bondi 18s, I think they were called. Bondi 8s. It was Bondi 8, yeah. And they're very heavy shoes. And I just felt like I was lifting weights. And I thought, well, the pair I have, I'm starting to have problems with my Achilles tendons, which means it's time to replace them. Or basically, I turn them into my walking shoes. And I've been using them to walk around LA on the concrete. And they're great as walking shoes. That's a different set of muscles by and large. But I thought the time has come. So now I've got a pair of New Balances. And I'm looking also at adding a pair of Brooks to this because I'm not sure which pair I liked better. And if I'm going to move to a lighter shoe, I want to kind of try out a few brands. I will warn you, if you're a runner, this is what you do, and it's not cheap. This is the expensive part of your equipment, is your shoes. That, you're supposed to keep them for about 300 miles. I usually get rid of mine at about 200. But again, that's the cost of being a heavier runner. Meanwhile, on Sunday, which is today, in fact, I am recording this on Sunday, June 1st at 6:19 p.m., I really didn't do anything. I drove into Santa Clarita and picked up lunch because I just wanted to get out again. And when I was down there, I realized I wanted to come home because I had so many other things I wanted to do. So I had a kind of peaceful stay-at-home Sunday with just a lunch interrupting it. But on both days this weekend, I have run. And the running's going very well. I'm at week 5, going on week 6 of the 10-week Couch to 5K because I'm really pretty fit. And so I'm just trying to take myself back a few steps from a complete 5K to give myself a chance to build up my lungs and strengthen my legs for running hills. Last year I started very, very slowly, and it was great because I started on hills very slow with very little running in the beginning, first 6 weeks. And what happened was my legs got really strong on hills so that I really wasn't even noticing the hills. Now I'm noticing the hills, but nothing will build up your leg strength like doing hills. And for those of you who are wondering, the rule of thumb for running uphill is short steps at a quicker pace than your normal cadence. But I'm doing okay. Considering that I am walking and running, I am doing about an 18-minute mile. So it is very satisfying. In fact, I'm well on track right now. I'm at a little over 1.5 miles in these shorter workouts, and I'm well on track to have the same or faster 5K as I had last year. But it's a little challenging because I have another race in 13 days, and that, of course, will be the Sugar Daddy. By the way, I added a new race, which is a race I've been in before, to the schedule, and that is the Mountain Gallop 5K up in Tehachapi, California, which is just an excuse to go up there and spend a Thursday and Friday and Saturday up there seeing patients from a hotel room and also eating at my favorite barbecue place and just having a really good time because there's a Starbucks within walking distance of the hotel. So if I get too bored in the hotel, I can go out to Starbucks and knit, or I can ride around downtown Tehachapi, such as it is. So there's one to look forward to. That will be in August. So you can see my upcoming races. They're in the schedule. There's not a graphic for some of these. I'm actually thinking of taking out the section of the show notes with all the graphics. That really excited me last year. Now I'm finding it a bit annoying. On to the fluffy books. Well, there's one book I didn't even talk about because I read it so fast. And this was reading, not listening. And this is a book by Maeve Binchy, an Irish author. This is her first book called Light a Penny Candle. One of my very wonderful patients recommended Maeve Binchy to me. And you can see the links for everything I'm going to talk about in the show notes. Light a Penny Candle is incredibly compelling. Now, if you're like me and you went to 12 years of Catholic school, it's going to ring a lot of bells. And I would suspect that Binchy herself was at least raised Catholic. She is Irish. Kind of harder to avoid it, And the interesting thing is, the novel itself is quite neutral about that stuff. It's about two girls, an English girl and an Irish girl, who first meet in World War II. And it's about how they grow up together and remain loyal to each other. And it's about the challenges they face based on coming from these two wildly different cultures that exist geophysically side by side. And Binchy doesn't take a stand in either direction. The ending, you kind of wonder if she is deciding that the English girl is more cold-blooded or whatever, except if you're dyed-in-the-wool Catholic, the Irish Girl has also made some really serious mistakes. Woven into this it is the challenge of being a woman in those cultures, of the restrictions that are placed on women, the helplessness economically. It's very, very interesting. But it's so incredibly readable. I really could not put it down. And it invites so much thought about changing moral codes for women in both Britain and Ireland, and the effects of the Second World War, the role of the matriarchy in Irish culture. I can't even tell you, there's so much in this book, I'm going to be thinking about it for weeks. This is Light a Penny Candle from Maeve Binchy, and this is her first book. I can't imagine her as a more experienced writer if this is how she jumps out of the chute. This is the most amazing book. Meanwhile, Georgette Heyer, I'm listening to the end chapters slowly as I knit to the transformation of Philip Jetton, and yeah, now I see why so many people hate this book. It just gets pretty hard to take about how a woman wants to be mastered, and then this female lead thinking, oh, master me, master me. I mean, you could just scream. And again, what I said last week is true, that there's a lot more subtle stuff going on in this theme. And one of the places Heyer goes wrong, on those occasions where she does go wrong, is she spells out what we should know, that she can be very clumsy. So, for example, she titled one of her mystery novels in such a way that the title itself, if you know classical literature, or if you know Shakespeare's take on classical literature, either one would work, you're going to know it right away from the title who the killer has to be. And that's an accident. That's her, hinting at her audience, and she doesn't realize she is hinting so incredibly strongly that an intelligent reader can't miss this. Okay? That's the kind of mistake she makes, where she leans and overemphasizes by leaning on some of these points too hard. And it would have been better if she hadn't, if she had simply backed away and let the reader put things together for themselves. And the ending of Philip Jetton, the last few chapters, are very much that way, where you think there's this really good take on transformation and on the difference between the honest country soul who's a little rough in his ways and not very fancy in his dress versus the fop. And she's very interested in the character of the fop. They pop up all over her books. And, that transformation and how deeply that strikes, like, does the person actually change on the inside, compared to the transformation of a naive country girl to a sophisticated London woman. There's so much possible there. And she'll come back to this over and over again in her later books. But this is Georgette Heyer laying it on too thick, where she doesn't trust the reader enough, and that's where the book just starts going horribly wrong in the last few chapters, where she's spelling it out too hard. Now, the other sad thing here is they're very funny, including the titles, that I think she's trying to be funny about some of the things she's saying in the titles, that she's making these sarcastic comments, particularly about the female lead not knowing what she wants. And again, that would be great, and these would be very, very comic chapters if it wasn't for the fact that she seems completely serious, and her later books do suggest that she did lean towards this idea that women want to be mastered. Now, you have to remember, she's writing, this book I think is published in 1923, and she has to think about who her audience is, and she's a young woman, and she's bought into her culture's dominant misogyny, is the best I can say there. But it's a shame, because I really would love to see this book rewritten with all credit to Heyer, without the appalling speeches, and let that humor take center stage, because the humor at the end is worth noting, but it's really hard to keep it in mind when you're reading these ghastly speeches by the second female lead. I've also been listening to My Lady Jane, which I think I may have read before. It's sounding awfully familiar to me. It's very, very, very witty. And again, my thing about Jane Grey breaks my heart. That it's such a tragic story. So it's hard for me to do this. It's hard for me when we fictionalize real people and it doesn't ring true. That always kind of bugs me, and everybody wants to do it. Don't get me started on the HBO series The Tudors, where they take this sexy, dangerous culture and then they basically play Bridgerton on it, where they try to make it modernly sexually dangerous. And you're like, listen, kids, if you knew anything about the Tudors, you would know you don't have to do this. They're a bunch of freaking barracudas. They're so desperate to kill everybody around them to stay in power. You don't have to give them sexy costumes. We all can pretty much see what's going on there. So that's what's hard about My Lady Jane, but it is extremely well written. It's incredibly witty. I really, really deeply have been enjoying it. And it reminds me of the Deadly Damsels or Dangerous Damsels by Holton. It's that same kind of like just line after line of joke. It's just one-liners continuously and sarcastic observations and all that. All right. Meanwhile, something I really like. I have been playing with a puzzle called Jane Austen's Plight, and this is an escape room game. I believe I picked this up at Barnes & Noble for the rip snort of a price of $15. This is a puzzle you can play by yourself or with a group. And if you handle it carefully, you can pass it on to someone else when you're done. And I don't know how much I should say about this. There are a series of envelopes, and each one involves solving a puzzle and then using a little turning wheel to see if you got it right. The way you know you got it right is you will get a word that is printed on the next envelope, and that is a cue to open the next envelope. I'm not used to this kind of thought. At the same time, I do enjoy certain puzzles. I enjoy Sudoku and unscrambling words and all that stuff. So this is a new one for me, and it really kind of offends my dignity how hard I've had to struggle with it. It gives you hints, and it gives you solutions. The interesting thing about the hints, they're pretty useless. I read the hint on the first chapter and on the second chapter, and I already knew those things. That's not what I would tell you is great. What's great is you have to be observant that every piece, including the envelopes that the clues come in, are parts of the puzzles most of the time. So if you notice something unusual, that's part of the puzzle. If you're looking at something and you're saying, that's a little odd, that's because it's part of the puzzle. It's a lot of fun. It's really interesting. All it takes is a pad of paper and a pencil to work out some of the puzzles. You just have to be flexible, three-dimensional, and a little inventive in your thinking. And I don't want to tell you too much what it's about. It's just really, really fun. I hope there are going to be more in this series because this is a lot of fun. I will put the link in the show notes. Meanwhile, Project Back episodes on Proton. We are up to episodes 101 to 150 for the month of June. These are from the original series of the podcast. They will be up all month. They are on my Proton Drive. And again, I will go through this and then I will do 50 episodes or as many as I can fit on the drive at a time for the current series. Then I will circle back and do them again. So this is probably going to last us a good 10 or 11 months as I do this. And I'm sorry if you missed some of the originals. I just don't have the room to post them all. But they will be up and the link will be in the show notes. Put a lid on it. Well, I owe a lot to our Jasmine Knitmore this week in several ways. But one of them was she was looking for the recipe for the electrolyte drink Ketorade that I was recommending last summer. And this made me take a romp back through the show notes to find it. And so I posted the picture of the recipe, and underneath it I typed out how you do it. I use a pint mason jar for this. This is a very straightforward thing. This is how you get electrolytes, particularly if you're keto. And it's very simple. The juice of half a lemon, or I just used bottled lemon juice sometimes. 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, a half teaspoon of no salt, or if you're in America, it's called NU, new salt, a half teaspoon of pink Himalayan salt, and you sweeten it to taste with liquid stevia. Stick to the liquid stevia, you'll be happier. 5 to 10 drops. I think I use in a pint jar. I think I'm probably using 6 or 7 drops. And also you're going to fill the rest of the pint jar with sparkling water. All you do is put it all together in a pint jar. Fill it with sparkling water and shake it up. I got one comment when I posted this somewhere else where someone said, oh, people are always giving that pink salt healing qualities it doesn't have. Let me help you on that one. I believe the FDA has pointed out that the average American eats so much microplastic in their food that it is the equivalent of a credit card's worth of plastic every day. Now, the problem there is you'd think, well, surely sea salt, like really good kosher salt or, purified sea salt, wouldn't have that. Yeah, it does. They thought it didn't for a long time, and someone sat down and analyzed sea salt. Nope, microplastics. The ocean is loaded with them. So the reason we're using pink Himalayan salt is it comes out of a mine. It's coming out of the ground. So as far as we know, it's not polluted with microplastics. Now, there's white salt that can be mined. Why pink Himalayan? Well, the pink salts, they're pink because they have electrolytes, and that's the whole point of this drink. The electrolytes in question, I believe the pink color is iron and or manganese and or magnesium. So, yeah, this is an electrolyte drink, and this is one way you're getting the electrolytes, okay? In case you're wondering, no salt or new salt, that is potassium chloride. Regular salt, as in the pink Himalayan salt, without all the electrolytes, is still electrolytes. It's sodium chloride. So in total here, you're getting potassium, sodium, chlorine, chloride, which is not the same as what you're putting in your pool because it lost, I believe, an electron here. Am I getting that right? Okay, I'm not even going to go into it because I can't walk and chew gum, let alone do chemistry in my head while I'm doing this. But that's what you're getting for the electrolytes. And I'm not sure what's in lemon juice, to be honest, apart from vitamin C, which is always great for you. But I'm not sure if there's any electrolytes there. Stevia doesn't count. It's just a ground up plant. Sparkling water shouldn't count. But that's the whole point, that this is a way to replace electrolytes. If you're doing any summer outdoor work, or if you have a health condition that requires adding electrolytes, if you're lightheaded in the heat, all of these things mean it's time for a nice electrolyte drink. This takes all of 30 seconds to whip up. By the way, the Himalayan salt and the no salt / new salt, they're available on Amazon at a minimum. I'm pretty sure you can get them at Walmart as well. Walmart is a surprisingly good keto store. Hey, Gemma, aren't you boycotting them? Yes. Yes, I am, but if that's my only resource, I will stoop to it. Let's be real. Okay, but that is the electrolyte mix that was recommended by Jasmine. She wanted us to bring it back, and I think it's a really good thing to have on the notes for the summer. On to the blather. Well, my son continues as the chorus line guy. They're going into dress rehearsals. It's getting tense. In the meantime, though, by the time you hear this, he will be a high school graduate. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I can't even go there. It's this Friday evening. Oh my goodness. As I was wandering this week, I walked into 2 demonstrations in favor of not deporting people, or let's call it what it really is, illegally kidnapping them and putting them in concentration camps. But I walked into 2 protests on that, one in front of the Burbank Airport, one at the corner of Laurel Canyon and Ventura Boulevard in LA. And they were protesting this because, of course, we're breaking American law to do it. That due process was a key demand of the Declaration of Independence and the American Constitution in the 18th century, because Americans were having the exact same problem from the British government when they were in America acting as their imperial overlords. So, yeah, coincidentally, there it is, a post from the late Pope Francis about this. I couldn't agree more. I want to point out, for those of you who are in America and not looking forward to what's going to be insane on June 14th, the current Pope, Leo, the American guy, yeah, he says he's going to telecast a mass during that time. I'm starting to really like the new woke pope. Now, of course, they drive me crazy because they say they're getting more and more open-minded towards women, where you just want to say, really, guys? That's supposed to be an improvement? You could just try, following the model that was set for you by a certain person 2,000 years ago, saying that you believe in them, but you're ignoring that part, Okay, but even so, I have to admit, I am glad to see some pushback here. And yeah, we do continue the boycotts, but yeah, there are moments where I have a conflict there. I'm not happy about it. You just kind of work on these things as best you can, and when I find other resources for those things, those supplies, I will go to them. Let me put it that way. All right. And meanwhile, the community resources, they're there as always in the show notes, and my upcoming calendar of races and just time off, and of course of the events relating to yarn and fiber in the Santa Clarita Valley. And once again, CFR 11, October 11th, 2025. I believe it's going to be at the Marriott Courtyard in Valencia. They are not coming after me this year. Last year, they were following me around saying, do you want to reserve it again? I believe that's because we didn't live up to our pledge to have 50 people. Even so, I'm just going to get rooms there and talk to them and see if we can negotiate something for a smaller number, if that's what we have to do. Now, last year, because we had it so early, because of the Jewish holidays and various other crises, that influenced how many people could come. And there was another big fiber event that weekend in LA, and I'm impressed and grateful that so many people did come. So hopefully this year we don't have that competition. But I did reserve my room, and we'll just hope it works out. So Minerva gets the last word, and there you can see a picture of Minerva holding her grown-up kitten. Yeah. Well, you may interpret it as you will. The important thing is Minerva has always treated my son as if he is my kitten and her kitten. And so she will tolerate stuff from him that she would basically rip my face off if I tried, like the way she's holding my kitten in that picture. Go look at it. You'll see what I'm talking about. The important thing, Minerva understands that she belongs to him just as much as he belongs to her, and they belong to me, and I belong to her, and we can play that game all night. The important thing is we are a community. We work together to make things happen, and that means sometimes we have to tolerate things we don't like or we don't understand. But as long as nobody is getting hurt, we work these problems out. We are stronger as a community. And when we protect the rights of the community, we are protecting the rights of the individual. Good heavens, it's my fungus self speaking again. This leads me to wonder who my bear self is. Because I can tell who my fungus self is because Amy Storm was kind enough to identify that part of me to me. And it's very true, by the way. If you know how fungi work, I do make a pretty good fungus, come to think of it. I'm not sure what my bear quality is. I don't feel like Mama Bear. I don't feel like I'm that sort of big icon of overwhelming furry motherhood. But anyway, I shall figure out who my bear persona is. In the meantime, everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.